This is a re-recording of a presentation initially prepared for a public information meeting that took place on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 at the Village Commission offices in the village of Canning. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, the live recording was not able to be uploaded, and so this is a re-recording of the same presentation. The application for the public information meeting pertains to an amendment to a development agreement for a comprehensive neighborhood development located in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of J. Jordan Road and Summer Street in Canning. This slide shows a brief agenda for the evening. The purpose of the meeting is to inform the public of the application, as well as to explain the planning policies that enabled the application and to receive preliminary feedback from the public. With regard to the process used by the municipality to process development agreements, including substantive amendments to existing development agreement, includes receiving a complete application, holding a public information meeting. Following the public information meeting, a staff review occurs, during which a staff report and draft development agreement is prepared. These are presented to Planning Advisory Committee with a recommendation coming out of Planning Advisory Committee to Council. Council gives the application initial consideration, and if they are interested in moving forward with the application, they authorize a public hearing. Following the public hearing, Council makes their decision on the application, after which a 14-day appeal period begins. Given that this is an amendment to an existing development agreement, we wanted to present the options that would be before Council with regard to this development agreement. The first option is to approve the amendment to the development agreement, which would change the overall development, and that would move forward with the developer. The second alternative is to refuse the amendment to the development agreement. And if this were the case, then the developer would be able to proceed with the development in accordance with the approved development agreement currently registered on title. The applicant has simply made a request to change certain aspects of the development agreement. The proposal as received includes an amendment to the existing development agreement regarding the overall built form for a portion of the approved multi-unit dwellings permitted by the development agreement. This applies to the portion of the development in the northern part of the subject properties, and this is referred to as Phase 2 within the existing development agreement. The proposal as it stands currently is to reconfigure the built form of the proposed development from 4 multi-unit buildings having a maximum height of 5 stories into more multi-unit dwellings having a shorter height, so 4 stories. This would result in additional buildings. So currently there are 4 buildings proposed. This could generate roughly 5 buildings. No increase in the total number of units is proposed. The existing development agreement shows this as Phase 2. This is the northerly part of the subject properties. J. Jordan Road runs along the bottom of this screen, and Summer Street runs along the left side of the screen in proximity to the public road access. So this is the site plan for the current development agreement. We see a public road that extends from Summer Street over to J. Jordan Road. A number of townhouses located on what is the west side of that road, but on the bottom of this screen, as well as some on the other side of the road, and the multi-unit dwellings. Each of these multi-unit dwellings is permitted to contain up to 60 units, and they each have a shared amenity building between the two. The proposed site plan sees still the same configuration for the public road. However, we see additional buildings, 1 additional building here and 1 amenity building in proximity to the road. The townhouses along the western side of the new public road are proposed to remain. However, those on the eastern side of the public road have been reallocated to the multi-unit dwellings proposed. This is the subject properties. We see there are access to the subject property from Summer Street, and then 2 accesses from J. Jordan Road. The northerly access from Summer Street has an approximate road frontage of 65 feet. The access from the northerly entrance on J. Jordan Road has approximately 115 feet of road frontage, and at the southern end there's approximately 135 feet of road frontage. The property is currently vacant. It is heavily vegetated, with some areas that have been cleared in anticipation of development. This is the zoning for the property. We can see the subject properties are primarily within the comprehensive neighborhood development, or R5 zone, with the exception of the property that fronts on Summer Street and the northerly access from J. Jordan Road. Both of these parcels are in the residential 1 and 2 unit zone. Policies 3.1.13 and 3.1.14 guide the development of lands within the comprehensive neighborhood development, or R5 zone. I will be addressing policy 3.1.14 first. 3.1.14 enables council to consider including additional lands that may not be located within the comprehensive neighborhood development, or R5 zone, within the development agreement, provided that these parcels either contribute to protecting natural features or improving transportation linkages or facilitating the development of isolated properties. 3.1.13 is the main policy used to assess this type of development agreement. And this policy indicates that council shall be satisfied with a number of criteria. The first is the composition of the development. The development is intended to be consistent with the intent of the residential designation and should include uses that include but are not limited to residential uses primarily, but also community facilities, recreational facilities, and commercial uses intended to serve the neighborhood. Criteria B indicates that the development is meant to include multiple types of buildings. So this proposal includes apartment buildings or multi-unit dwellings and townhouses, but the mix could be a mix of 1-unit dwellings, 2-unit dwellings, townhouses. The intent is just that there be multiple forms of housing types as opposed to just one. We're also looking for an overall minimum density of 4 units per acre for sewer and water service developments, which this is. Criteria D states that the development should have a neutral or positive long-term impact on municipal finances, as shown by a fiscal impact analysis. So typically what this involves is an estimate of the revenue generated in the forms of property taxes, both for the municipality and the village. And this is compared against any new costs that would be associated with new infrastructure for the development. Criteria E states that the development should include appropriate phasing to ensure orderly development. This is intended to reduce the creation of vacant parcels between already developed areas and new areas. Criteria F states that it should result in public infrastructure that is efficient to service and maintain, and this also is related to the fiscal impact analysis. Criteria G encourages active transportation to be included within the development, and this can be provided through sidewalks, pathways, or trails. Criteria H indicates that the development should minimize environmental impact by protecting sensitive natural features and incorporating low impact approaches for managing stormwater. Criteria I does not apply to this development since it relates to R5 zones that abut the agricultural zone, and these subject properties do not abut the agricultural zone. Criteria J indicates that a minimum of a 10% open space contribution is required for any subdivision occurring through this development agreement. This is a standard dedication that occurs for most subdivisions that occur within the municipality. This policy simply indicates that this would generate an increase in the open space contribution. Criteria K provides council the ability to consider alternative road, lot, servicing, or other infrastructure standards if appropriate. Criteria I indicates that vehicle and pedestrian linkages are meant to be provided to enable integration of the new development within the existing community. Criteria M states that the development should complement existing and planned development within an adjacent town or village in location, design, and linkages. And criteria N states that the development should meet the general criteria set out in section 5.3. These general criteria contained in policy 5.3.7 are general criteria used to assess all rezonings and development agreements within the municipality, and staff are intended to convey to council that the proposal is in keeping with the intent of the MPS, the municipal planning strategy, that there won't be any negative financial impacts, that the development is compatible with surrounding land uses, that there are adequate school, recreation, and community facilities to serve the development, that the development won't create any traffic hazards or congestion that are deemed to be inappropriate as determined by the authority having jurisdiction, that there are adequate fire protection services in the area, and that sewer and water services are adequate to service the new development. Council is also meant to be satisfied that there won't be any potential for flooding or serious drainage problems caused by the development itself, and that there won't be any negative impacts on well fields or other groundwater supplies, and will not generate pollution such as soil erosion or siltation of watercourses, and that there won't be any negative impacts on nearby lakes or farming operations. Finally, council is meant to be satisfied that the site is suitable for development in terms of grades, soils, geological conditions, location of watercourses, marshes, bogs, swamps, and other utility right-of-ways. To summarize our process again, we have received a complete application. We have held a PIM, or a public information meeting, that accompanied this presentation. Following this, staff will conduct a review of the policies in the proposal and draft a staff report and draft development agreement amendment for Planning Advisory Committee. We're intended to forward a recommendation off to council, who will proceed with the approval process that includes initial consideration, a public hearing, and final consideration. That concludes the presentation. My contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or comments pertaining to this development agreement amendment. Thank you very much.